As we get closer to Election Day, we have to talk about how Donald Trump can win back the presidency. What is up, people of the internet? It is me, Real American, back again with a new video, and today we have to talk about the 2024 presidential election because we are in the final stretch of this campaign, and I know we still have 2 months before Election Day, so it's not like next week's Election Day. There's still plenty of time, but when you really think about it, this is it. This is the final stretch to Election Day, and you could argue it's the most critical stretch for both campaigns. And I really want to talk about how the Trump campaign can capitalize on these next 2 months, because this is it. Like I said, there's no more time. We are in the final stretch. And I want to start by looking at the electoral map. There are so many pathways for Trump, but everyone knows by now the easiest pathway is Georgia and Pennsylvania. You win these 2 states, that's it. You're 270, you can't lose. Unless something crazy happens in, like, North Carolina, where by some miracle, Harris wins North Carolina, which I highly doubt's the case. But either way, this is the easiest pathway for Trump. He gets Pennsylvania, he gets Georgia, he's at 270. But of course, this isn't the only pathway to victory. He can win through Wisconsin, Georgia, and Arizona. Barely, but he still gets 270, you know? Or actually, like, yeah, 272, excuse me. There are so many pathways for Trump. There's one with Michigan and Georgia and, Nevada, which is not likely. But with his current map, Trump could do so many strategies to win. But I really believe that the Trump campaign, they shouldn't just have one map. Because if you just rely just on Georgia and Pennsylvania, yeah, on paper, that's the easiest map. But in reality, you run a huge risk of losing just one of those states and you lose a presidency. That's the biggest problem with just having one strategy. And of course, the Trump campaign, they're not going to do that. They're going to try to spend money on all the swing states. But if they're smart, they would target Georgia and Pennsylvania the most, which they already are. They are spending a bunch of money and time in these 2 states. So they understand you got to win both of them. At the bare minimum, one. If you lose both of them, you're screwed. You're not going to win at that point. I guess it's still possible. Harris could win Pennsylvania and Georgia and still, lose. But if she's winning Georgia and Pennsylvania, do you really think Trump's winning a state like Arizona, like Michigan? You see the problem? So you don't want to put all your eggs into one basket. Of course. But at the same time, you want to make sure you secure at least one of these 2 states. And at that point, you still want to secure another state for just to make sure nothing crazy happens. But if you just win Pennsylvania and Georgia, there you go. You're the next president. But if I'm being honest with everyone, looking at the electoral map and calling it a day, that's not everything. Like, of course, we got to make sure we have to look at all the possible pathways for Trump. We got to make sure he could get to 270 through multiple avenues. But if I'm being honest with everyone, this isn't everything. This doesn't matter if the messaging sucks. This doesn't matter if the resources are being spent on crap that no one cares about. So we have to talk about what the messaging should be for the Trump campaign, where they should hold rallies, all of that, because that's what's going to decide the election. Not just, Pennsylvania's red on a map and that's it. No. How can Trump win back Pennsylvania, win back Georgia, win back Wisconsin, all the other swing states? And when it comes to Pennsylvania, I would argue Pennsylvania has what could very well be the most important region for this election. Not just in Pennsylvania, but for the entire election. If you're Trump and you do good in this region, you're probably winning. And of course, I'm talking about northeastern Pennsylvania, Scranton, Allentown, a place like Northampton County. This region right here, I really believe, is the most important region, not just of Pennsylvania, but for this entire election. If Trump runs it up here, he's going to win. Now, I'm not saying ignore Philly. I'm not saying ignore Pittsburgh. I'm not saying ignore a place like Erie. That's not what I'm saying. I'm arguing, do events in a place like Bucks, in a place like Allegheny, Westmoreland, Erie, run up the base in the central part of the state. But if you're the Trump campaign, and you look at Pennsylvania, there's one region in particular that makes the most sense to have gains in. Northeastern PA. For the simple fact that this is where Scranton Joe's from, on paper at least. Remember? Joe Biden, Scranton Joe. His entire campaign in Pennsylvania was, I'm Scranton Joe. And you could argue it's the reason he won Pennsylvania. Look at this. In Northeastern PA, Biden ran up his margins in a place like Lackawanna, Luzerne, Monroe, Pike. He did 5, 6, 7 points better in virtually all these counties. And while it wasn't the entire margin of victory for Biden, it was a large chunk of it. And you could argue, if it wasn't for his margins in northeastern Pennsylvania, there's a good chance that he probably loses the election. And that's because he was Scranton Joe. That was his entire campaign in Pennsylvania, Scranton Joe. Even though that's a bunch of crap, it did work. It helped them in a place like Lackawanna, Luzerne, like I said, this part of the state. But now, Biden's off the ticket. He's not running for re-election. He was one of the last Democrats that could appeal to voters in a place like Scranton. And for those that don't know, these voters are ancestral Democrats. They have been voting Democrat for like 40 years. But in recent years under Trump, they have been shifting more and more Republican. But with Joe on the ballot, it kind of stopped that trend for a little bit. Like for a couple of years, they weren't trending as Republican as they should be. But Joe's off the ticket now. And you replaced Biden with Kamala Harris. At least with Biden, he had white working class appeal. It was bullshit. It was like, he was a fake white working class guy, but at least it kind of existed. It did help Biden in a place like Scranton, in a place like Erie County, but he's not running. And you replaced him, one of the last Democrats with some kind of white working class appeal, with Kamala Harris. Think about that. Kamala Harris is the opposite of Biden when it comes to white working class appeal. Do you really think she can run it up in Scranton? No. Do you think she can run it up in Erie? No. Hell, even a place like Bucks County, that might be a problem for her. That's the issue for Democrats that they're not thinking about. But either way, right now, this is a golden opportunity by the Trump campaign to target this region. I would recommend, if you're doing a bunch of rallies in Pennsylvania, focus on northeastern PA. Try to flip Northampton. Try to run it up in Luzerne, Pike. Try to get Lackawanna very close. Monroe, try to make it closer. Even a place like Allentown, which is very Democrat. But lose it by, 2 points or whatever, instead of losing it by 10 points. That's a big deal. You add up all these shifts, and Pennsylvania suddenly becomes very competitive. It becomes down the wire. And that doesn't include trends in Western PA. That doesn't include what could happen in Philly, which I think we will see a big shift towards Trump in. Again, I'm not saying everything will come down to Northeastern PA, but the more you look at it, this is a golden opportunity by the Trump campaign. And you can apply the same logic in a place like the Driftless area of Wisconsin. Southwestern Wisconsin, place like Grant, place like Crawford County, Richland, Vernon. Just like Northeastern PA, these are ancestral Democrats. Same thing in Michigan, like Macomb County. This was a Democrat county for years, but Trump was able to flip it. He made it a Republican county. And in 2020, Biden did do better in Macomb by 3.5 points. The same logic applies in all the Rust Belt states. That's why I really believe if Trump is doing way better here, which you could argue that's because Biden's off the ticket, but you would still think that if he's doing like 10 points better in that region, wouldn't he be doing better in southwestern Wisconsin? Better in Macomb County, Michigan? Because these voters are very similar. A lot of them were lifelong Democrats, but in recent years, they became Republicans. But just having events here, that's not going to flip voters in a place like Scranton. You have to have good messaging. And I would argue, Trump has a secret weapon this cycle that he never had before. For the first time, I think, ever, he has former Democrats, not just, Democrats from 40 years ago that finally became Republicans officially. You have actual Democrats that endorse Trump. That's RFK, that's Tulsi Gabbard, that's a few others. And I do believe Trump should utilize them. Make them do events in Democrat areas like Scranton, Pennsylvania. These are ancestral Democrats. When they hear that a name like RFK is backing Trump, they may think to themselves, hey, you know what? I like RFK. And if he's backing Trump and he's actively supporting him, and hell, RFK is going to be in the administration, you know what? I'm going to give Trump a second look. I'm going to vote for Trump because he's trying to unite America. He's bringing over former Democrats like RFK, like Tulsi Gabbard, and they disagree on a lot of stuff, but it seems like Trump is open to Democrats. He's not just a partisan hack saying, if you're a Democrat, you can never vote Republican. No, he is accepting these new voters with open arms. Like, welcome to the Republican Party. We may disagree on stuff like abortion or whatever, but on stuff that really matters, like, immigration, like the economy, we have a lot of similarities. I think this is an easy, just common sense stuff, but for the Trump campaign to do. Like, wouldn't you want someone like RFK campaigning for you in northeastern PA? That to me makes way too much sense. You're talking about a former Democrat like RFK endorsing Trump and going to Scranton, Pennsylvania to talk to Democrats about, hey, Trump, we disagree on a lot of stuff with him, but he at least listens. He gives us a seat at the table. He understands that we have disagreements, but on stuff like immigration, which we'll get to in a minute, we agree on a lot of stuff. So you should vote for him. That makes too much sense. The Trump campaign better do that, and I think they will, but there's a lot of things the Trump campaign can utilize RFK and Tulsi Gabbard for. Make them campaign in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Hell, even a place like Philly, where there's a lot of blue-collar Democrats that still vote Democrat, but in reality, they should be Republican voters. But when you add up all of this, like, okay, having campaign events in Scranton, Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, Erie, Philly, that's all good and all, but the most important part about any campaign is messaging. You could have the best rallies in the world, but if your messaging sucks, like the Harris campaign has crap messaging, it doesn't really matter. Because at some point, people are going to get sick of it. They're going to tune out. They'll be like, who cares if you have a great rally with 30,000 people at it? If your messaging's awful, it's stuff that no one cares about, well, I'm not going to vote for you. I'm not going to pay attention to your campaign. And this is where the election will be won or lost for the Trump campaign. I really believe that. And this election should be a referendum on immigration. I know the economy is the number one issue, but what happened in Springfield, Ohio just a couple days ago, this might have changed the entire dynamic of this race. Because this is a city in the Rust Belt, not just on the border. Like, you could argue all this time, well, the issue of immigration, it wasn't impacting the Rust Belt, even though it was, but the cope from Democrats was, well, it's not impacting people in Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan. Turns out, that's complete horseshit. For those that don't know, there were 20,000 immigrants from Haiti that were dumped into a city in Ohio, Springfield. 20,000. Just for context, the population of the city is 60,000 people. That's not a misquote. That's not 600,000. You heard 60,000 people live in the city. Yet the Biden administration, they dumped 20,000 migrants from Haiti into the city. And they are causing chaos. It's complete chaos. And even the citizens of the city, they had enough. They're saying, no, this is insane. Our city's falling apart, and the government's doing nothing about it. This isn't in the Rio Grande Valley. This isn't in New Mexico or Arizona. This is Ohio. This is in the Rust Belt. This is in Middle America. And that's why I believe you have to make this election about immigration. Of course, talk about the economy, inflation, foreign policy. I get that. Talk about every issue possible. But make this a referendum on immigration. It's a shit show. what's happening right now? Or do you want a secure border? Do you want to stop this chaos? If you want to stop the chaos, vote for Trump. This is easy messaging. This could win Trump the presidency. Because now, people in the Rust Belt, they're going to finally realize, oh, wait, this isn't just the border being a mess. This is an invasion. These people are coming to Ohio, and they're causing chaos. They're destroying our cities. And the sad part is, this probably happened to God knows how many other communities. But this is the first one that people are talking about. Because it's a crazy number. 20,000 immigrants from Haiti? To a city that has 60,000 people? That's crazy. But we just got to see what happens. Hopefully the Trump campaign, they use this messaging. They use RFK. They use Tulsi Gabbard. And they focus in on northeastern PA, a place like Scranton. If they do all these things, Trump's going to be the next president. I really believe that. If he does all the things I mentioned here, he should win. Again, we got to see what happens. Maybe something crazy happens next week to change the race completely. But this immigration ordeal, this is bad for Harris. And the Trump campaign is already utilizing it to their advantage. Anyways, folks, thank you so much for watching. If you guys did enjoy this video, smash the like button down below, subscribe, share with your friends, hit that little bell, follow the social media accounts in the description down below, and of course, join the channel today. Godspeed to all of you.